Hello, Just to Film here. Let's talk about Phoenician Scheme, which is the most recent Wes Anderson movie. Another co-written script by Roman Coppola, from my understanding. And yeah, this is an espionage Wes Anderson movie. But don't think that this is going to be serious. I remember early reports said, oh, this is going to be one of his most serious films. No, it's still mostly a comedy, which is something I've seen Asteroid City and even like French Dispatch kind of fall into, his two most recent ones. And I kind of wish that he went back to having more emotional vulnerability. Some of my favorite Wes Anderson movies are things like Fantastic Mr. Fox, Moonrise Kingdom, Grand Budapest, which have very funny moments, but they do have moments that take themselves seriously, that have emotional moments with their characters, and I was missing that here. That's not to say this has bad characters. I do love or not even duo, but trio of characters that we mostly follow throughout this movie, which is a character who's the lead, played by Benicio Del Toro. And yeah, he was a great performance. His daughter in the movie, who is played by this actress I haven't seen before, but I was like, oh wow, she's fantastic in this movie. She was probably the standout in terms of performances for me. And I really like the humor with that character, but I think my favorite character was Michael Cera, where I was not super into the performance at first, but it was making me laugh because it was so weird. But it did make sense for what they were going for. And yeah, he had a lot of great humor with him. And it was actually a Michael Cera character that wasn't the same old Michael Cera character that I've seen in a bajillion movies before, which is a compliment because he's one of those actors who plays like the same character in all these movies. There's also some great supporting roles from Mattel Amalric, probably saying his name wrong, fantastic actor, watched Diving Bell and the Butterfly. And also Jeffrey Wright has a really good minor character. With that being said, there were some like meta roles from like Tom Hanks, Bryan Cranston, and Scarlett Johansson, where I'm just like, these are kind of playing the characters that they played in Asteroid City. Okay, I don't think Bryan Cranston was in Asteroid City. It was like, yeah, these are blending into those supporting characters from Asteroid City and don't feel distinct at all and are kind of wastes of very talented actors and actresses. But part of that is the script, where I don't think they're given anything interesting. And like the Tom Hanks, Bryan Cranston gag that they latch on to, I thought was really weak. And that's one thing I have to say, is the humor of this film is not there a lot of the time. There's some really funny moments, but like it is making like a lot of jokes. Like it's one of the more comedic Wes Anderson movies. And it was just kind of like, okay, this is like a very Wes Anderson-y, like sarcastic, deadpan script in terms of the jokes. And like, it's just getting tired at this point. Like I've seen this type of humor in so much of his other work, and I wish there was something a little bit more fresh here. There were some good practical effects, surprisingly, like a much more gory movie than I thought. And there were like two gory effects I was like, oh wow, that was awesome. Like I really love how that was executed and that was convincing. And sometimes it was like, okay, that was just like such a fun effect. And there's some great use of miniatures as well. So lots of standouts there. And it's a Wes Anderson movie, so of course it looks absolutely beautiful. I mean, it's carefully framed in such an interesting way where you could probably watch this with no dialogue on and it would still be engaging. And then, you know, there's like a great mix of how they use the camera, where I love like this overhead shot that's used for the title sequence. That was beautiful. Interesting color grading, where it's a bit more of a like darker color palette, or even like a drained out color palette than what I've seen from other Wes Anderson movies, giving the illusion that it's going for a more serious tone. But like I said, I did not feel that in terms of what the script and performances delivered on. I think the score by Alexander Desplat, which I probably just mispronounced his name, but a lot of these names are hard to pronounce, and I'm so sorry about that, is very repetitive. It kind of reminds me of Asteroid City, where it's like, okay, we have this theme and you're really just doing the same beat over and over again, and that's like 15 of the songs here, and I found that very frustrating. There was seemingly some like, you know, not exactly licensed out music, because there's some classical music and stuff, and that worked a little bit more. But yeah, I was kind of a little bit left down on the score. And a bad Alexander Desplat score like in this movie is leagues better than generic movie generic movie A and generic movie B. So me criticizing the score is just because I have such high expectations, but in no means was the score a bad film score compared to most other films out there. The narrative, I thought, was most interesting in the middle, where you have this trio just kind of going around. And I liked how varied the locations were in this film, where I feel like it's one of the most varied in locations compared to Wes Anderson's other works. And there's a nice mix-up of locations so that things don't get stale on a visual level and also on that narrative intrigue. So I like that, and I thought it was best in the second act. But I do think the beginning is a little bit slow to get started up, and I do think the ending runs on a bit too long. But I do like where it concluded, and yeah, with all that being said, I would give this film a low 7 out of 10. Definitely closer to a 6 than an 8. I almost gave this a high 6, but I'm like, no, this is still just beautiful compared to so much else of what I see. I wouldn't mind seeing this again, even if it, dragged on here and there, even if the jokes didn't really land for me, even if I didn't completely connect with the characters. But at the end of the day, yeah, this was a really solid movie. So let me know what you think of this film in the comments below. Subscribe here for more honest movie takes, and I'll see you later. Peace out. Bye.